welcome to the Sideboard here at the Star City Games Team Open in Richmond, part of the SCG Tour, brought to you by Ultimate Garden Carnox Chairs. I'm Nick Miller alongside Zach Allen, representing RIW. Already won an Open this year.
Yep.
Did pretty well at the Players' Championship last year, and we're looking to run it back, right?
That's the goal, yeah.
Now, you've been grinding Arena all week since Theros came out, jamming blue-white.
Yes.
You've been top 10 Mythic for pretty much the entire week.
Yep.
And now you're here for your team playing Standard, playing Azorius Control.
Yeah, that was the idea. They put me on Standard right away because they didn't want to play it. So as soon as Theros released on Arena, I was jamming and found this deck pretty quick, and it just never seemed to lose. So
a stock Control player through and through.
Yes.
No surprise to see you playing the Control deck here.
Yep.
But the surprise is how good this deck is. And I think that's because a lot of these new cards, and we'll start touching on those, but the Birth of Melodius, this is one of the cards that flies under the radar, but is very good.
Yeah, it's just a lot of value for a 2-mana card. You don't usually see that in Standard, where it, pseudo 2-for-1s, even like 3-for-1s, aggressive decks, kind of. If they're playing Shock, it is a 3-for-1. So a lot better than it looks, and it's part of the glue that makes the deck function.
Yeah, for a Control deck, just getting a land guaranteed, huge, but then the blocker also nice.
Yes. Yep.
Life gain obviously helps us there as well, but we've got a lot of new cards to touch on, so we'll move on from there to Omen of the Sea. Now this is a card that, surprising when you look at it, especially when you're not playing the Thirst for Answers, is it called?
Thirst for Meaning.
Thirst for Meaning?
Yep.
You're not playing that card in this deck, but still Omen is in the deck.
Yeah, Omen is just, it really is the glue that holds it together. Like, I only play 3 Births in the deck because Birth is good in some matchups but bad in others. But Omen is just always good. It always helps you find the cards that are relevant for that matchup, and it's very important to find your stuff because this is more of a tap-out control deck. It's very important to find the thing you're looking for to tap out for next turn before the turn, because if you take a turn off and don't do anything, it can be pretty devastating.
Right. Then we've got the new Wrath here, Shatter the Sky.
Yes.
4 mana, people have complained long enough they didn't have their 4 mana Wrath of Gods.
Yep.
The drawback, I refuse to accept that it's that big of a drawback when people have not had a very easy to cast 4 mana Wrath in Standard for a long time.
So the drawback is kind of brutal, and I can imagine there are some builds of the deck where it matters a lot, but it doesn't actually end up mattering in this deck that much because of something we'll touch on later.
Right, we'll get on that immediately because Dream Trawler is the reason to be playing blue-white Control.
Yeah.
You slam this card, and outside of Wraths, the game is over.
Yeah, basically nothing else matters once Dream Trawler comes into play. The game is just about Dream Trawler, and it's really hard to answer. The ways, there's just very few ways to get it off the table, and the deck has counterplay against the ways that do get it off the table. And if you just look at every other card in the deck, none of them are like necessarily great control cards. They're good, they're fine control cards, but they don't take over control of the game. It's just more a bunch of speed bumps to just get to Dream Trawler, and then you just delver them out with a Dream Trawler.
Right, long gone are the days of Supreme Verdict. So when you play this and you have a counterspell, it's pretty much over. I want to know what percentage of the games roughly do you think you win when this card comes into play?
Oh,
upwards of 90%?
Yeah, 90, 92, something like that. I've definitely lost, like, if you don't lose the turn it comes into play with like a swing on that turn, it's really hard to lose. The only other way I've lost is actually decking myself with it, but I mean, it just gains so much life that it just makes racing it just completely unrealistic.
Yeah. Then we have the other one, Elspeth conquers death here. In case something does happen to your Dream Trawler, just get to bring it back.
Well, it's actually just a really brutal curve because it's like you play Elspeth conquers death on 5, and then you probably ate something, which, a little inefficient removal, but it traded 1-for-1. You're usually fine with that in a control deck. But then you play the Dream Trawler the next turn. Their spells to answer Dream Trawler cost 2 more, and then if they do answer it, it's just coming back. So there's just no winning.
Yeah, that's a brutal curve, as you mentioned.
Yep.
And then we have the Planeswalkers here. These aren't new, but, to see Teferi and Narcy together is no surprise. One thing I did not see in a lot of the online lists of the early Azorius control decks was Narset.
Yes.
You, however, are leveraging it as your draw spell as opposed to the Thirst for Meaning, it looks like.
Yeah, I just thought Thirst for Meaning was too bad. I played with it multiple times, and you were often discarding a card you wanted, or sometimes you discard a Birth, and that was awesome, but you didn't have that many Births. And I never wanted to discard Omen, because Omen just helped you dig further. and I just wanted card draw that was brutally effective at matchups I wanted it in, and Narcy does that. Narcy is so punishing for other decks looking to draw cards.
Right, the splash damage and the mirror seems wild in trying to break those matches.
It also comes up a lot against Midnight Reaper, believe it or not, to cast a Wrath into a board full of creatures, and instead of them drawing 6 or whatever, they draw 1.
Yeah.
So that is meaningful interaction.
Okay, counterspells, you got Dovin's Veto and Absorb here.
Yep.
More card draw with Chemister's Insight, and then the latest edition of removal, Banishing Light. We've seen this card before.
Yes.
It's back. It's still doing everything you need it to be doing.
Yeah, I don't think Banishing Light is particularly good, but you just need that type of effect. Yeah, it's fine.
The lands we have to mention on as well, you have castles of both colors.
Yes.
Huge value there in your mana base. But you also get to play Field of Ruin and Temple of Enlightenment. The blue-white one, always one of the best because you want to be playing a tap land on turn 1 most of the times anyway.
Yeah, it's one of the best cards to lead on. Just makes your mana perfect because you're a 2-color deck. Starting in a duel makes it really easy. It helps you find your 2-mana plays, so you just are making plays throughout the game. It's even good late to just set up like a draw off a Dream Trawler. It's kind of like an opt, build your own opt off a land. And yeah, on Castle Ardenvale, I think Castle Ardenvale is the best land in the deck. It's one of the reasons to play this deck. It's very powerful. I've had it come up multiple times where my opponent just has like the new Elspeth in play, Mythic Rare, and it's just worse than my Castle Ardenvale. So yeah, I think that card is just ridiculous.
Pretty good ability to have on the land.
Yep. I mean, it's the other counter. Like, there's 2 ways to kill Dream Trawler, right? A Wrath or an Edict. And they just can't ever edict you if you have a castle. So then they just have Wraths, and you can counter those.
Yep. All right, we'll move on to the sideboard here. Standard is pretty new, and it's wide open. So I'm interested to see why and how you figured out this sideboard configuration here. You obviously have a bunch of counter spells here that are situational. You got the others, Dovin Veto, you got some Mystical Disputes. Here, though, the Whirlwind Denial. Talk about what this card's doing.
The reason you put it in the deck is because it's a clean answer to Krasis, and Krasis is one of the better cards against you, but realistically, it's just a 5th cancel. There are some matchups where cancel's really good. You want another one, and it's easier to cast than playing, like, say, a Sinister Sabotage, which can come up because Birth gets you a lot of planes. It's nice to be able to cast 2 cancels on a turn where you only have 3 blue sources.
Yep. Yeah, a clean answer to Hydroid Krasis. Pretty solid there. We've got Aether Gust. Then we have Revoke Existence. We see this one a bunch in Limited, but to see it here, what specifically are you looking to target? Gods, maybe?
Yeah, mostly gods. It's also nice to, there are some decks that recur enchantments, like Doom Foretold. They use White Cavalier or the Dance of the Manse, and just being able to exile a Doom Foretold or an Elspeth Conquers Death from them is relevant.
Okay. We have more removal of varying options here. We have the Devout Decree. We have the Glass Casket here.
Yes.
Got to talk about Heliod's Intervention, though. This looks like pretty backbreaking in a couple of matchups.
Yeah, it's specifically in the sideboard for the Cat Oven deck. The Trail of Crumbs and Oven can be one of the better engines against blue-white, and the fact that it can just get rid of the entire engine all at once, all in one card, is what you want it for.
Does it come in the red matchups with the life gain clause, or is that not relevant enough?
Against certain builds, I will bring in one, like the very, very aggressive ones, but mostly it's not for that.
Okay. And then we got another win con / life gain source, Archon of Sun's Grace. Dream Trawler gets a lot of press and Limited for being hard to beat. This card also hard to beat once you get it going.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. It's mostly just a 3/4 blocker with lifelink the first turn you play it, and that's fine. You'll just trade it off with something, gain some life. But then it comes back with Elspeth Conquers Death, and you have mana up to start triggering it, and it just goes crazy. It's kind of like a standard Monastery Mentor, I guess. Kind of the same juke idea.
Now you obviously crushed the Arena ladder for the last week or so. How do you feel coming into this event? Are there any decks you're looking to avoid? And what's the meta look like that you think this is the place to be?
Well, honestly, the one thing I want to avoid is playing a mirror, just because there's a propensity to get draws in those, and they can be kind of awkward. I think I'm a little teched for the mirror, but past that, the very aggressive mono red decks can get under you. You'll notice I have a lot of spells that cost 1 and 2 in the sideboard specifically for that. But if they don't have like a perfect curve out draw, it's still tough because just Dream Trawler's a house against a red deck. Yeah, I mean those are the awkward decks. Decks like Doom Foretold decks can be somewhat awkward on occasion, but if you play the matchup right, I think you're favored. And overall, I just think this is the best deck in Standard. Like, I just wasn't losing very much with it, and I mean that's a mark of a good deck.
Yep, not losing, top 10 Mythic.
Yeah.
You're here with a solid squad, so we expect a lot from you. Zach, thanks for filling us in on Azorius Control. This is one of the new breakout decks in Standard, so pay attention. Stay tuned to Star City Games all weekend long for the action here in Richmond.